Welcome to episode 227 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and I am so excited. I have an amazing panel this week, and the first person that's arrived, well, she arrived later, but she is the guest for this week. That's Kelly Guimont. How you doing, Kelly?
Hi, David. I'm well. How are you?
Doing well. Glad you made it. And another guest is here and has joined us, Chuck Joyner. Thanks for being here, Chuck. How you doing?
Thank you for having me, David. I'm in one piece after the day I've had, and that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I was
I hear you.
Busy last couple of days, actually. But and then last but certainly not least, Jeff Gamet's here. Thanks for being here, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm always happy to be here. I'd like to point out Kelly is the guest of the week. Chuck is the guest, and I'm last but not least.
Yes.
Well, so it seems like every time I'm here, Jeff, you're here. Like, David,
have you put a ring on it contributor yet? What's that?
Have you put a ring on it yet?
What's that?
Well,
I don't get it.
I mean,
now, Kelly, do you want me to draw you a picture?
He's been Inktober all week, all month,
with
I should
iOS
say.
After Dark.
Oh my God!
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on fast.
It's been a great show. See everyone next week.
Yeah. So we have, as we record this, the quarterly results were announced, and that's always exciting to be able to talk about them like hours after they were announced on the show here. iOS 16.1 was released. There's lots to talk about this week, so let's just jump right in. And speaking of the quarterly results, Apple, they're doomed. Oh no, wait, they're not. They reported some.
They only made almost all the money instead of actually all the money. So it's just time to shut it. It's been a good run, Tim, but it's time to go. No, but it's the revenue was a mere $90.1 billion. It was up a few percentage points from last quarter. They had a total profit of $20.7 billion, which was not too shabby. But a couple of notable things that were announced, and I'll say it. Mac is just insane. How the numbers have jumped on the third quarter was 7.4. And now it's up to 11.5. Yeah, it's just pretty amazing quarter for Mac, and Mac seems like it's here to stay. What do you guys think? I'll talk about Mac. I don't mind at all because it's just kind of an exciting thing to see that the Mac is really making its strides in the market.
But Apple releases new products, and then they sell. when they weren't releasing new Macs, they weren't selling as many. There
Imagine
you go.
That.
By the way, the amount of profit Apple made in this one quarter, $20.7 billion. We're talking about numbers that are so big that I don't think we can actually conceive what they are.
Right.
And then revenue of $90.1 billion. Mm-hmm. Holy fucking shirt balls.
I used to, I haven't done it in a while, but I used to have a spreadsheet that, and I fed in calculations for the number of minutes in a quarter and the number of seconds in a quarter. And I could adjust it for how many days were in the quarter, depending on what months they were and everything. And because nerd. And I would go in and I would go, okay, show me what the iPhone looked like. Like, this is what they said it was, for profit. And then I could see, like, this means that every second of the quarter, Apple sold this many phones or this many iPads or whatever it was. And it was always a baffling number. And then I would say, okay, let's say they're open 12 hours a day, right? So if you only take the time the stores are open, then they sold this many every second or this many every minute. And it was always a baffling number. And I was always looking for some sort of way to get my head around it. And that was sort of like the best I could do was, for 3 solid months, they sold 20 iPhones a minute, or whatever. And the numbers continue to go up. And that's the thing that I think is really impressive is the consistency of it. And, even when you listen to the call and you listen to all these people saying, trying to ask questions about what Apple should be doing instead of what they're already doing that is making all the money. And, even like through the pandemic, everybody staying home decided they really needed a new computer. And, and now it looks like based on these numbers, everybody else decided they too needed a new computer. Everybody that didn't buy one in the last couple of years has bought one now. And, or in some cases, maybe bought another, who knows? But like the numbers to me are very consistent. And like Jeff said, you consistently release new Macs and people are excited to buy them. And, there's no real secret to that piece of it, in my opinion.
Nope.
I thought it was interesting that they were very careful to point out the release of the M1s last year, and that there had been a gap, for a while before that. Then the M1s hit, and they had a fantastic quarter, and so they're guarding against people expecting that kind of huge surge to continue. But to Jeff's point, they release computers and people buy them. I mean, there's a pent-up market right now for the Mac Pro, and I'm not sure if there's not a pent-up market for new Mac Minis. And we're hearing rumors about they may or may not be coming. The MacBook Pro hasn't had a refresh in a year and a half. Is that right? A year?
It's about a year. No, because I bought mine in January of 2022.
Yeah, that's true.
They came out like late 2021, like September, October. Yeah, it's about a year.
Yeah, because they started shipping in December.
Yes, you're right,
if I
Kelly.
recall correctly.
You're right. Yeah. They did. So,
friend of the show, Brittany, was waiting for hers and wondered if it was going to show up before Christmas.
She maxed it out.
Yeah, so that's coming. At some point. I'm not sure that there's quite the same pent up demand. Yeah. On the other hand, we don't know what the specs will be for that. So, maybe that will create its own pent-up demand.
We also got a completely new computer, not this quarter, but the Mac Studio. The Mac Studio, right. I like to call it. I think that may have bled off a little bit of the Mac Pro demand because however you slice it, that's a monster machine. Like, unless you need two of them in that cheese grater form factor so you can put a plank between them and have a nice bench full of computing power, like there's absolutely no reason that most people could not do very, very well with the Studio. And so I think that's also, at least in the last year, that's been one of the more interesting moves I think they've made, and it makes me even more curious to see what the eventual Mac Pro is actually going to look like, because I think a whole lot of people who just who legitimately on a fundamental level ask a whole lot of the hardware that they're using are being very well served by that the Studio, because I'm not hearing a lot of people complaining about it.
Nope.
I just have a hard time thinking that we're ever going to see a cheese grater again. That form factor, just because I'm not.
Oh, we're not. They're going to go back to the little black trash can.
I doubt that.
I said it with a straight face. That's all I wanted out of that.
Nicely done. Yeah. No, I think we have a good idea what to expect generally from the design for the design for the new Mac Pro. And if you look at the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio, we can extrapolate out what the Mac Pro will look like. And there you go. On a
Small,
side
medium,
note,
large.
Yeah. on a side note, I decided to try and come up with miles versus dollars comparisons, like $1 equals 1 mile, and what sort of distance are we looking at to get to Apple's quarterly revenue. And I thought, we're not. It doesn't matter, because when I got out to the Sun to Neptune, and I'm at 2.78 billion miles. Okay, so we're basically talking 10 times the distance from Sun to Neptune for a dollars to miles comparison for how much revenue Apple made. And see, we can't conceive these numbers.
No.
Oh my gosh. All right.
You're such a geek, Jeff.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
I think I need to move on. I'm going to get through these numbers real quick. iPad was flat for this, but this still made a mere 7.2 billion. So they still all did okay. iPhone had a modest increase, 42.6 billion. That was about a 10% increase over year to year. Services, that was interesting. That kind of dropped a little bit. It went to 19.2 versus 19.6. So there was a bit of a drop, but it's still 9% revenue change. So services are still going to continue to do it. And wearables, Apple Watch, 9.7 billion, over 8.1 billion last quarter, about a 10% increase. So the percentage of the product line still dominant, of course, by iPhone at 47%, but you got Mac now at 13%, and you have services now at 21%. If I remember correctly, it was like around 17, 18% last quarter. So, I mean, or something like that. So services have really jumped, and they will continue to jump. And we'll talk about a bit of a change with services here in just a bit. But yeah, good numbers. We're not the financial analysts here, but I do have a link, and thanks always to Jason Snell in 6 Colors to take a look at his amazing charts he does every quarter for the sales. And plus, he's got even him and Dan Moore did a video that's on the front page. So check that out too. So that's it on that. Let me move on. And like I said, speaking of services, Apple is increasing the price of Apple Music, Apple TV, and the Apple One bundle. So they're going to increase by $1 for individual users, $2 on the family plan, while Apple TV is going to increase this price by $2. Apple One prices will also rise accordingly. And this is all the information that was found from 9 to 5 Mac. So now the individual plan for the annual, I know, like, Kelly, you do the annual plan, that's going to go up $10 to $109 a year. Still worth it. I mean, they haven't touched it in years. So
yeah.
Apple TV, actually, it was inevitable.
I don't think they've ever changed the price on Apple Music.
I don't think so either.
I think it started at $9.99 a month or $100 a year, and forever and ever, amen, until now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, the Apple TV Plus is only going up $2. I mean, $4.99 was a bargain. $6.99 is a bargain. I mean, it's still a good deal if you're an individual subscriber to that. And the breakdown for the Apple One bundles, I think most of us here, not all of us, have the premium plan, which is that's $32.95, went up $3. You have the family plan, $22.95 for $3, and then the individual plan will go up $2. So if you depending on which plan you have. So it was inevitable. I don't. What do you guys think? Is there anything that is surprising about this? I mean, it was a long time coming.
I don't think there's anything surprising, David. The only thing I might slightly disagree with you on is that, a $2 increase for Apple TV. I agree with you that it's absolutely worth it given the content. But I think, anytime that any of these prices go up, somebody's going to, it causes people to stop and say, where I'm subscribed to it, it goes off my credit card every month, and I don't think about it. And now it's called attention. Pardon me. It's called attention to itself. And so now people are doing an evaluation of, is this a good value? I personally, for how much I use Apple Music and Apple TV, I think it's a fine value. But it's still something that is going to have attention called to itself by the very fact that it went up.
Absolutely.
When you look at what's happened here, everything that has happened will happen again, just like we learned in Battlestar Galactica.
Just gonna call you Adama for that. What do you hear, Starbuck?
Yeah. So when Amazon raises their rates, this exact same discussion happens. When Netflix raises their rates, this exact same discussion happens. And now Apple's doing it. So here we go.
Well, I think part of it is a point I think you made on Mac Voices very recently, Jeff. And that was, I think we were talking about Apple having engineered themselves into a corner. And I think this is the same sort of move that Apple has to make in order to remain competitive, in order to not be seen as the cheapest service, and not particularly for TV, where they were even more than fashionably late to the party, I would put forth. And to still sort of be in the running, but not necessarily be viewed as a cheap throwaway service for not being in line with what it costs for some of the other ones. So I think really, if you look at like Disney Plus and that sort of thing, Disney Plus is another one that is not $10 a month. and it'll get there eventually, but it's not there now, and has a whole lot of content that whether you want to watch it or not, whether you pay for it or not, everybody knows the names of 5 things that are on Disney Plus, right? And so to at least be competitive with Disney Plus price wise makes a lot of sense, and to make it something that does still feel like it is a service that has value. And I think part of that is probably increasing from just $5 a month, which is a thing that we've talked about before when Apple has adjusted prices on things. And so I think it makes sense. I still think it's a value. I'm still going to pay for it and not flinch. We are at the point at my house where we're looking at going with a bundle to do the family plan, just because I'm really tired of hearing Mr. Kelly listen to music on Pandora and sit through advertisements. And I just feel like, can I just buy you Apple Music and you can stop doing that? Can we just put it all on the Visa and move on with our lives? And the price increase doesn't change that viewpoint for me. A side note that I will point out here, because I didn't see this in the show notes, David. If you are unhappy about the price increase, and you or someone has a Costco membership, you can buy a year of Apple Arcade for $45, a year of TV Plus for $45, and a year of News Plus for $90. And it's usually $10 a month, I think, for news, if you want News Plus by itself. So if you know somebody who wants one of those services, you can still get a really good deal, because even if you pay for a year, I think it's $60 a year for TV Plus and for Arcade. And this is $45 at Costco. And I think it's a digital code, but you have to be a member in order to make that purchase. So if you're not doing a bundle and you're not interested in doing the bundle, or you want something, you want something that's not in the bundle that you have, then you can do something like that. And like for $90 for a year of News Plus, I'm looking really hard at it now that I know that that's an option. So that might be a thing, and could make a good gift for somebody if you think they would enjoy Ted Lasso, or the film that won Best Picture at the Oscars earlier this year. Is the movie that's on, is a movie that is only available on Apple TV Plus. So or if you're like me and you have a dad and he likes Tom Hanks, then, let him go watch a bunch of Tom Hanks movies as much as he wants on TV Plus. Yeah. So don't tell my dad he's getting a year of TV Plus, by the way.
We'll definitely put a link in the show notes for that. Next story, I've got a couple quick stories here. Apple delays the daily cash savings account for Apple Card users. Apple, of course, did announce earlier this month that they were going to include a Apple Savings account that be in conjunction with the Apple Cash Card that you get from your Apple Card. But for some reason, there's some problems, and Apple did announce it and said that it's going to be coming available in the next coming months, because it was supposed to be out with iOS 16.1. But when it does come out, what it's going to be is a nice savings account where you can get the money transferred right into that account, and no minimum fees, no minimum deposits, no balance requirements, and it'll be partnered, of course, with Goldman Sachs. So we'll, guys, any thoughts of that? We'll definitely hope to see that soon.
Cool. That's about it.
Yeah, not much on that.
When it gets here, it gets here, and that's when we'll talk about it, because then we'll be talking about the interest rate, the terms, the conditions, and all those things.
Because they haven't really announced any of that yet. So.
I'm guessing this is not a technical issue, and it's more of a regulatory issue that Goldman Sachs is working out, and there you go. Yeah,
I believe it. Apple did update all of the iWork applications this past week. You got Pages, Numbers, and Keynote for both macOS, iOS, and iPadOS, with supporting of new features. They're adding support for easily sharing documents with coworkers through messages, and support for new collaboration features in iOS, iPadOS, and macOS Ventura, including integration with FaceTime, which is interesting. And the latest update will also add support for getting notified when changes are made in a shared document, improve support with Stage Manager on iPadOS 16. And they're all available. I downloaded them. I haven't really looked at any of those features. Have you guys looking at any of that at all with these apps?
I haven't had a chance to look at it. The one thing I've found interesting, though, is that there seem to be after I was reading the reviews and the notes, that there seems to be a big focus on collaboration and a big focus on the iPad.
Yep.
As a device for these three apps. So I think it's going to be really interesting to play with them and find out just exactly how it has been implemented.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
I've seen a lot of headlines about that. That's part of what I'm looking forward to is the iPad piece, is the mobile part of it, and then after that the collaboration, because having it work really well on mobile is really nice. I don't spend a ton of time in Pages. Of all of them, I use Keynote the most, and being able to be able to spend that time on my iPad, and then also have it work really well, and have it work really well when I'm working on something with someone else is even better. So I'm hopeful that ends up being the actual case.
Yep. Another app that got an update this week was the Apple Support app. It gains a new look and revamped a reservation system. About time. Apple announced today that its update to the Apple Support app is with this new functionality. It's going to make you get better reservations for service in a retail location or an authorized service provider. The update revamps the look of the reservation system, gives an improvement of organization, quicker to access devices, a bunch of support tools and more. Because I always found when I was using that app, it was not very friendly to get support. You had to go through a lot of hoops to get support with this. So good to see that Apple is making improvements on that. You guys, I'm assuming you guys have gotten this app before and used it one way or another.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. It's been kind of a pain. So I'm looking for, I'm not looking forward to the next time I need to use it, but I'm looking forward to when I do need to use it, that it will be easier to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it's not going to be an extra layer of hassle on top of whatever the problem is I'm already having. That is the reason that I'm having to go to support. It'll be great when it's not, great, now on top of everything else, I have to go use this app and do the thing and, whatever. So I'm in the same boat as Jeff. I'm very hopeful that maybe this won't be the hurdle anymore. So
let's hope not. Next story was Apple had I should say the Wall Street Journal and Joanna Stern had an interview with Greg Joswiak and Craig Federighi. It was a really great interview. If you want to check that out, it's out there to watch. It's always fun to watch those two. They're both fun to be together. So Jaws actually came out and said that to confirm iPhone's future's move to USB-C. Of course, he's the vice president of worldwide marketing, and he did confirm it that the swapping of the Lightning connector to USB-C will be done to comply with the EU regulations, as we talked about it.
And the riots will start in 3, 2.
Exactly. I mean, Jaws even made the comment. It's like, there's a billion Lightning Connect cables out there. I mean, it's going to be an anarchy. It's going to be crazy. People are just going to go nuts because I mean, and I know they did a little bit when the 30-pin connector went its way, and
David,
it was, I don't think, anywhere near as bad.
A little.
It's going to be a lot.
It was the end of Western civilization
when the 30-pin went to Lightning. Right?
When they went, we might not do that giant pain in the ass has to actually snap in, only works one way connector. We're going to get rid of that and make your life easier. This is the worst thing that's ever happened.
Yeah. More so that they had adapters to adapt it from 30-pin to Lightning. And
I have one.
Got all these cables.
I have more than one. I'm not proud.
What do you think, Jeff and Chuck?
Jeff, you first, and I'll wrap it.
Apple never had any intention of going to USB-C on the iPhone. They are not happy about this. And I think this screws up part of their roadmap for the iPhone. Just a hunch. Also, the whole meltdown thing that people are going to have. Part of that's because the EU is now forcing a standard that has no standard as the standard for the connectors for electronic devices.
That's fair.
Yep.
It's I mean, a lot of people are looking at it as it's USB-C. Okay, well, what does that mean? And what cable do you need, and how do you tell if you have the right cable? And I mean, there's so many things that go into this.
And will it fast charge, or will it only normally?
I mean, for
charge?
most people, the answer is no. They will never fast charge, and it'll just be this constant thing throughout the day of having to keep plugging in their devices because they're never fully charged because they can't fast charge.
Right. Go ahead, Chuck.
I'm just tired. I am just tired of everybody complaining about every step forward that we make. And that whoever said it, this is the end of Western civilization. We heard this when Apple introduced USB back with the original iMac. Oh my God! It doesn't have this. It doesn't have that.
It doesn't have a floppy drive. This is clearly the end of the world. Yeah.
And then we got rid of the DVDs, and oh my God, I've got stacks of DVDs. And it just look. We are trying. Everybody's trying to move the platform forward. Sometimes they're trying to do it in opposition to the legislative bodies that don't know their head from a hole in the ground, and that's a real problem right there. But at the end of the day, everybody's trying to push this forward, and we all need more speed. We all want more speed. We all want all this great stuff. But as soon as anybody introduces a new connection, a new opportunity, a new standard, they have a stroke. And listen, I've participated in some of those discussions, because sometimes those things are ill-conceived and sometimes they're just flat out stupid, at least from our perspective.
Right.
But it's part of the landscape.
Yeah.
It's the only constant is change. Get used to it and go complain about something important.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This is the kind of thing I like to refer to as a nerd world problem, which is when a first world problem looks at your problem and goes, "Really? This is what you're complaining about?" I want to back up though, because Jeff, you said that Apple never had a plan to go to USB-C on the iPhone, and I presumed, and maybe it's just me, and I run a home for this sort of theory. I feel like I have to add that first. I thought the reason we went back to the square sides was so that they would be thicker phones, and then we would have room for a USB-C port. I really, really thought that was the move. So I'm surprised to hear you say that.
I like that hypothesis. No, I think the move back to the square sides was because the form factor actually worked better. Just overall.
Oh, I'm absolutely not mad about it. It's my favorite shape of all the phones.
Oh yeah, I really like it too. And if you're going to the camera bumps and you're doing curved everything, and then you have the camera bumps on top of that, I think that was just kind of aesthetically weird. So this works better.
Yeah.
But I think Apple's next step was going to be the port just goes away, the Lightning port, and they have something else that's more like a smart connector, but it would be much more robust and much more capable than the smart connector we have today.
Yeah.
Okay, that I could see, because I keep seeing people say it's going to be portless, and I will never ever get behind that ever. Even when they do it, I'm still going to be like, this is dumb. I'll be mad and I'll buy one, but I'll still be like, this is dumb, because I still plug my phone into my computer on occasion for reasons.
And there will be options for that, but it doesn't matter now because the innovation in a smartphone and other electronic ports that's gone now.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what the EU is trying to do, and I get where they're coming from with that, but I don't like how they've gone about it in this case. A lot of times, the things that they do are supposed to be, like they're doing it in the name of consumers so that it's easier for consumers to do the thing or whatever, right? And in this case, I don't think they've gone about it in the right way, and I think part of that is just not having an inherent understanding of what USB-C by itself actually is, as opposed to a Thunderbolt cable, for example. Nobody has apparently explained to the EU that a Thunderbolt cable looks exactly the same as a USB-C cable, and nobody will know the difference until you try to plug the thing into the other thing and it doesn't work because it's not a Thunderbolt cable. So I'm worried about how this is actually going to roll out, not just for Apple, but for everybody.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
This reminds me of I've had the good fortune or not so good fortune of being involved in incidents that end up getting reported in the newspaper. And this is back when newspapers were a thing. And the number of times they got things completely wrong leads me to think, okay, if they're getting this wrong, and this is a relatively simple, small story, how wrong are they getting everything else that I'm reading and taking as gospel because it's in the newspaper? And so, I feel like this is a replay of that. They take things and they boil it down to something simple. It's like we want a rectangular plug instead of a square plug, and so we're going to legislate the rectangular plug without any consideration about all the details. Mm-hmm. And that's what really bugs me about the way the EU did it. It's what's bugging me about some of the things that are happening in the US that they're targeting tech companies without really understanding the implications. They just, it looks good. And, the tech companies, just like insurance companies and banks and brokers, they have all the money. So they must be doing something bad. And it ends up hurting all of us eventually later, one way or another.
All right. Well, we're going to see what happens. I mean, I think 2024 is when it has to be, it's mandated, and hard to say what Apple will do, but if maybe the iPhone 15 will be the one that they kick it in, and we'll see what happens here. Speaking of stuff that's going to be annoying, is app-related ads are now going to be appearing this week in the App Stores Today tab this week as we record. An email to developers this week, Apple announced that an app-related ad will begin appearing in App Store's main Today tab page, and also in the You Might Also Like section at the bottom of the individual app listings. And it's going to take place in every country except China. And all ads in the App Store will have a blue background with an ad icon. And this was what Apple had to say to the developers. And they basically said that the app is going to appear prominently on the front page of the App Store, making it some of the first content users see when they're beginning their App Store visit. And the prominence of the placement makes it a good option to drive awareness of your app. And, it goes on and on about that stuff. Each developer is going to get a custom product page that they set up in the App Store Connect. And then for the ad placement, the custom page must include at least 4 portrait or 5 landscape assets. Then it has to, once it's done, then it has to be approved by the App Store Connect, and then it will be approved by Apple search ads. Then it'll be advertised. Chuck, what do you think of this? I'm not excited about ads. I mean, I guess it was inevitable, but with a small dip in services, maybe this is where Apple's looking next.
You're not going to like what I have to say.
Well, that's why we like your opinion.
I don't.
Now I'm
care.
even more interested.
I don't care. I don't look at ads. I overlook ads unless something pops up and slaps me right in the face, and covers the content that I'm trying to look at. Mm-hmm. I've tuned out ads. I mean, Amazon constantly says in their listings, you may like. I never see it unless I'm looking for something that is adjacent to that product. Maybe I spend too much time online, but so they throw some ads up in front of me. So what? Otherwise it was going to be blank space. So,
it's not, here's the thing though, Chuck, it looks like the regular tabs on the App Store. So like I'm looking at it right now, and this is really not going to work well on my camera, but this top thing is it Clash of Clans? Yeah. Clash Royale. So it's Clash of Clans. This is the top thing. And then the thing right underneath it is the ad. And so the little background that David was mentioning, little tiny, right next to the little itty bitty description of the app, there's like the app name, and then underneath it says like, this is an app that helps you pick your nose or whatever. Then right next to where the description is the little tiny blue block that says ad. So it's very, very subtle. And the only thing that makes it stand out to me as an ad is that the screenshots are moving really slowly across the ad. And the other stuff doesn't really move except like one of the game ones that's like, games from back in the day or whatever, like how it has all the icons that move across slowly in the Today tab on those. It moves like that. But nothing obvious indicates that it's an ad. So this one might get you.
Get me how?
By looking just like everything else on the Today tab. it's just on there, and it just looks like any other. Hey, check out this app on the App Store today.
Okay, but if I click on the ad, what's the big tragedy? I've clicked on an ad. I decide, no, I'm really not interested in antifreeze this week, and so I leave. I mean, it just.
Chuck, I can tell you what the big tragedy is.
Please.
The big tragedy, which relates to the other article that Dave has. Spoilers, everyone.
Hold that thought.
It's the content in the ads, and what ads are being placed in relation to different types of applications. So what you're getting is essentially inappropriate content as ads in certain situations.
Woohoo!
Mm-hmm. Jeff, maybe that is
the
a
App
tragedy.
Store will be more interesting.
I don't know. I mean, at some point, Jeff, I think you recommended a game at one point called Exploding Kittens, which I think is completely inappropriate. But I would never see the ad because I'd never pay any attention to it.
It's such a fun game.
Well, Dave, is it okay if I just kind of roll into that?
Yeah, why don't you take the drive in here, because there's a lot of unhappy developers with these gambling apps.
So we're not talking about Exploding Kittens. We're talking about like gambling ads. And having these show up in relation to content that is, like addiction assistance type content. And then, hey, here's a gambling thing that you might want to try. You might like this. And so Apple is having a context issue with the ads, because they are putting content that would be inappropriate next to apps, and this shows up in podcasting also.
Are you willing to say this is? I'm not trying to make excuses, guys. Okay, but this feels like growing pains. That we've seen things similar to this before. That inappropriate content pops up somewhere, and somebody says, gets the attention gets called to it, and they get it fixed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I admit, this one is maybe a little bit of egg on somebody's face, but you can see it, how it's being driven by keywords or AI of some kind, and it's like, okay, they both relate to gambling, they both relate to if
right,
and so they go together, right? It's like cheese and crackers. Okay, they go together, so they get related. Now somebody pointed it out. There are people complaining about it. There are more of those people complaining about things that, but maybe this one's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was prominent because Mark Romer complained about it, and Federico Vitucci complained about it as well. He said, "This is not cool. I don't want my app associated with a gambling app, and this doesn't make any absolutely makes no sense." Well, what Apple did was not a day later, they went behind and went back and said that we are pausing ads related to gambling and a few other categories in the App Store, and that's all they said. And they won't comment on anything beyond that.
Right.
And that's the right response to what happened in a situation like this, where Apple has had a long enough time, enough experience with ads already. I would have expected this to be something that they would have anticipated.
Same.
They didn't.
With that, Jeff.
So at least it's going to be addressed now. But I think the egg on the face is all on Apple on this one, and they should have anticipated this before doing this new ad rollout.
And funny thing is, they were always very resistant to anything related to gambling. Other than maybe horse racing, because horse racing has a little more of a legality to it. It did. Well, now with all the states opening up, they're having a sports betting and gambling now, that they had to open it up, and it was only fair to do so, with your DraftKings and FanDuel and all those services out there that do the sports betting. So it was hard not to resist it, because there's money to be made. States are seeing that with the sports gambling, because they're making billions of dollars on that stuff now. So it was hard not to resist it. But then again, you have to be fair to the other developers who don't want any association with gambling at all, and they should have that right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a second, okay? And I really mean this as a devil's advocate, because I understand what you're saying, David. But where do you draw the line? That if I don't want to be associated, I don't want my app associated with, I don't know, pick something, anything. I want my app to be
I make a
pristine and
child's
pure.
counting game. I don't want adult related content.
Right. That was
showing
the
up as
thing
ads.
called out too.
Yeah, that's an extreme example, Jeff. But again, those are obvious. I'm talking about, let's slide the scale down to where it gets gray. And so I don't want my ad associated with political content. Okay.
Yep.
That may or may not be, black and more of a black and white.
Well, that's a big bucket
thing.
because like any news app could give people political news.
True.
And,
Yes.
like this is the kind of stuff that we've bumped up against. Chuck, this is territory we've talked about even over on Mac Voices more than once, because I can't remember. There was some sort of restriction that was getting like anything that had the ability to load something from a web page because of some sort of requirement about like now it can't be a kids app because you can load a web page in it or something. And so like a whole bunch of things got dumped out of the App Store. There were a lot of things like that I remember we talked about it because like where can you clearly draw that line to delineate this from that? Probably a better example would be like anything related to like shopping for recreational marijuana, for example, because it's legal lots of places, but not in every place. And is Apple going to let that on the App Store because it's legal for me and Jeff, but maybe it's not legal for you and David? There's a lot of, I don't know if that explains anything to anybody about this podcast or not, but there's a lot of there are a lot of ways that I can see not wanting to be associated with some sort of content in an ad. But the thing that I'm concerned about is the kinds of the kinds of apps that are going to stake out the ad space on the front page of the store. As we've talked about on other shows, apps that have weekly subscriptions seem like the kind of thing, they charge you every week instead of every month. That seems like a really good place to get a bunch of people to download that app and think that they want to subscribe monthly, and you're actually charging them 4 times a month instead of once. Those are the kind of people who are going to have the money and really be interested in getting that app in front of them, but as many people as possible. And the ones that are sort of sketchy, like maybe it's not breaking the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. Like it's just not cool to do some of the things that some of the apps have done that we've called out. And those are going to be the kind of people that are going to be the most interested, I think, in making sure that they end up on the Today tab. And that was one of the things that I was appreciated about the Today tab. It's one of the few places on my phone where I don't end up with ads. And now it's not. And I'm going to be a lot less interested in the Today tab as a result. So.
Okay. I just want to
one last point.
Yeah, well, not even a point, just an example, David, because I came up with one that I think is a little more gray. Okay, let's say I make a soccer game. I develop a soccer game, and the ads pop up for NFL football, and I say, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that American football, stuff. Soccer is pure and wonderful. Should I be allowed to screen it that way, or should I be allowed to complain about it? Well, I'm going to complain about it whether I like it or not. I mean, that's what I mean about into the gray area. That's as close because both those are two pretty innocuous things. But if the developer says I'm insulted by my pure soccer app being corrupted or polluted by this ad for Madden football,
right?
Then you have a problem,
right? Well, and part of the problem is English, because where you live, the app that you built is for football, and where I live, the app that you built is for soccer.
Well, true.
True. And to them, it's football.
Yeah. So I can. You have an excellent example. I can totally see that being an issue. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go, and I'm wondering if the ads in the Today tab are going to be more obvious, so that I can either screen them out or just give up on looking at the Today tab anymore. And I do spend more time there than I generally think I do. So. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. It definitely is, and I'm glad it was a good live discussion about this topic.
And I'm glad to see them that it's going to evolve. That they've stopped and taken a reassessment here. I'm glad for that.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the topics this week. Beta, not just soon after, a day or two after iOS 16.1 was released, Apple released iOS 16.2. Is the first beta. One thing I wanted to note, if you were running beta, which was kind of strange this go around, you actually have to uninstall the profile from your iPhone or iPad for that. Oh, iPhone really, because it's not installing the most current update to 16.1, and it wasn't updating to 16.2. So you just have to go in. Simple thing is just remove the profile and then just go back into your developer account or the public beta and remove it and then add it back so it installs. And I know not all of us do that as far as beta on their iPhones, but just wanted to make sure I noted that. But yes, 16.2 is out, and there wasn't a whole lot that was talked about as far as the features. They're working on some Game Center improvements, SharePlay integration, and then that Freeform app that Apple's planning to release later this year for the iPad. Got a bunch of notes in here to actually talk about that's in here as far as what was included in 16.2. And again, like I said, the Freeform app, the Stage Manager for iPadOS 16.2 is going to have external display port support, so that you're going to get that. The new Home app architecture that will also pair with the HomePod 16.2, and iPad and macOS Ventura will add support for an updated app architecture, come along with the addition of Matter, which has been the big talk about that. So you'll have the ability to be able to actually test the SOS calls before you actually have to make one, unintentional one, so you can make sure that it's working and inquire about it, how it's going. So again, it's beta. Don't install it on your primary device, as we all say all the time, and be aware of that stuff. So there was a couple other things here as far as 16.2 goes. The Freeform app is going to be an interesting thing. I'll probably just spend more time on that in the future to find out more about what that is. There are a bunch of features that still are going to be coming that aren't included in 16.2. And as we talked about it, the external display support is going to be with Stage Manager I mentioned. Then you have the gaming over SharePlay. So now you're going to be able to actually game and be able to have game with your friend and do that. So Apple Music Classical, that's coming, because it's been coming for a while since they bought the Classical service to merge it into the Apple Music, which was Primephonic, and we'll probably start seeing that for those of you who like classical music. So some things to look forward to. One other thing with beta I will mention is it's not really beta, is any of the older iPhones. So anything of iPhone 7 and older vintage. iOS 15.7.1 was released. It does have some important fixes. So those of you who are still running iOS 15 who still chose not to upgrade, you need to do this, as well as those who have devices that no longer will not support iOS 16. So check that out. There was some bug and security fixes that happened on there. And there was a pretty serious problem with 16.1 that it did fix that I saw here. I thought I had a link here for that, and I'm probably missing it, but here it is. It was a 0-day security flaw. So that's why, if anything, you have to make sure you really have to be running 16.1. Yes, it does have some bugs, but this does have quite a serious security flaw that it's affecting iOS and iPadOS devices, and so you really should make sure that you have 16.1. And on iPadOS, you don't have a choice. That it started with that, so you're safe. But just be aware that for those who haven't upgraded that, you definitely should do that. And there's a lot of other stuff. HomePod 16.1. Jeff, you being the resident HomePod expert, I'm sure it still stinks, right?
Oh my God. Oh, you have no idea how horrible HomePod 16.1 is.
Really?
It's okay. If you use the S Lady with your HomePod, 16.1 is horrible, at least on OG HomePods.
Oh, okay.
So on the minis, generally it's working okay, but like on my OG HomePod, I can have completely silent house, tell the HomePod to do something like turn on a light. And the light will come on the HomePod to let me know that it's listening. And then the light goes out. Nothing happens. And I can give the same command 3, 4, or 5 times before it actually does something. And and this is pretty consistent. It's not as bad on 5G with dropping out now, of like when you're streaming, but it's still an issue. But holy crap, Siri is so bad with 16.1 on the HomePod that I've actually caught myself talking to the Echo first on a lot of occasions instead of falling back to the Echo.
Yep. So
whenever I can't get a light to turn on, I just always assume it's because something in the home app is being dumb. And I've never thought to blame any of the
Now, I'm pretty
for
sure
it.
it's the S Lady that's the problem.
Maybe my HomePod is. Well, I do have one, which I feel like one of them does have a problem. And the thing that's funny is that it's the one in the kitchen. And if I tell the one in the kitchen to turn on or turn off the kitchen light, it goes, which one? And it starts rattling off every room in my house. And if I am standing anywhere else in my house, that HomePod mini goes, okay, kitchen lights on or kitchen lights off, whatever. Like it's, ain't no thing. And the one in the kitchen right next to the switch that I'm trying to operate always goes, "Bruh." And sorry to get technical. And it baffles me. Like I've reset it. I've done the reset, home in the home app. It doesn't immaterial. No, it matters not. I don't know what went down between the HomePod mini and that switch in the kitchen, but whatever it is, they are apparently never going to speak to each other again. And I can't figure out what's going on. And it's the weirdest blind spot, but I always thought it was home. Buggy. Never occurred to me that it might be the HomePod that's the problem. Okay.
Yep, it's buggy. One other bug that actually was just mentioned today as we record here is that iOS 16.1 is causing random Wi-Fi disconnects for some iPhone users. The users have been reporting periodic and sometimes randomly disconnects from Wi-Fi after updating to 16.1. There's been reports across the Apple support community and all the other social media places. What they're saying is it's periodically and sometimes randomly disconnecting throughout the day, despite no changes in the environment. So be kind of aware of it. Apple really hasn't really acknowledged this. Again, we just talked about beta testing of 16.2. Will they release an incremental update? Hard to say if this starts becoming a more widespread issue. I haven't experienced it. I assume none of you guys have either, right? As far as
it turns out, I have and didn't realize it till now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Then,
okay. It's not something that's happening a lot, but often enough that I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I toggle Wi-Fi on and off, and then Wi-Fi is working again. Okay. So I hadn't put all the pieces together until just now. So apparently, yeah, it's a thing, and I've got the thing.
You are the some percent.
Yes, I am some percent.
So be aware of that. I haven't seen that much of that. So other thing I wanted to mention is Dynamic Island. They have announced a lot of, really figured out some of the 34 or so apps that are already using Dynamic Island. We've got a whole boatload list of them as well as the live updates. They have live updates with weather, live updates for sports, live. So that's going to be really an enhanced thing with Dynamic Island. But we have a link here in the show notes as far as a whole list of all these different apps. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but a lot of cool things, and I think there's more cool things to come when it comes to Dynamic Island and a lot of this stuff. So definitely check that out. Well, that's right. I'm glad I didn't miss this one. Apple did share more details about this iOS 16.1 clean energy charging feature, because there was a lot of confusion about that. It's designed to allow iPhones to use and cut down on their carbon footprint. And I was like, huh? So clean energy charging selectively charges when lower carbon emission electricity is available for those who want a greener charging method. They did publish a support document. Well, that makes it official. And actually you go through and learning more about clean energy. And you can go in and check some of the settings in your iPhone under settings, battery and battery health and charging, and you can make sure that clean energy charging is turned on. Make sure that location services are on, and system services that system customization is on. But you can always override it if you don't want it to do that. But I'm still not understanding it fully. I don't know if you guys have looked at any of this stuff, but
yes,
it's only available in the United States, so it's not anywhere else around the world here. So, you had a thought on that, Jeff?
Yeah. Okay. So there are data tables that the utilities maintain, and they're just out there. And if you know where to go look, they're available. So what Apple is doing is using your location to know which data tables it needs to look at, so it can see when the low carbon power is happening for where you are, and then it uses that data to adjust how it's charging. And location services needs to be on, because if like me, I'm in Boulder. Let's say I travel to Chicago because we're going out for pizza. When I'm charging in Chicago, my iPhone will look for the data for where I am so that it's charging appropriately for my current location.
Nice. And Luminati's is offering white sauce pizza. So
shenanigans,
you have problems with red sauce. So that makes total sense. So again, you want to be have clean energy. Go ahead and go check that article out. A few other articles here in iOS 16.1. One other one I mentioned is tvOS. It did include some Siri improvements. The iCloud shared photo library. We'll talk about that in the next further episodes. That's going to be that's out now as well with 16.1. But looks like they've added a few things, since they did just release a new version of the Apple TV. So you see more to come with that. Got three more quick topics I wanted to go over real quick, an app and two more topics actually. First one that I wanted to talk about is, I've been, and I think I'm the only one here that's been on the iPhone upgrade program every year since its inception, and that's going back a while. It's going back at least, God, it's got to be like 6 or 7 years. I think Apple's offered it, so I upgrade every year because I get the newest iPhone. I want to do it. So I know people say you're renting the iPhone. Well, that's the way it is. But this plan is going to be a little different. And I think it was way overdue too for Mac. Two topics for Mac this week. And Best Buy is going to do a program called Upgrade Plus, which will allow customers to get a new Mac laptop every 3 years with monthly financing. And they announced that this week. And it's going to be involving a combination of interest-free financing through Citizens Pay and the option to upgrade to a new Mac after 3 years. So you have to hold on to the device for 3 years. So like they give an example, like if you get the M1 MacBook Air, that's priced at $999. It's going to cost you $19.99 a month for 36 months. At the end of the 36 months, you have the option to pay it off, $280, whichever is left of the payments, or you can return the machine at that time and upgrade to a new one. So I think that's pretty fair, because most people these days, and like some people we won't mention, that likes to have Macs every seems like every 2 months. That's pretty standard. I think most consumers like to have hold on to their Macs at least 3 years. And Jeff, you're on 4 years now, so you're going to get close to be upgrading here soon. But
am I really?
I don't. Did you say 4? Yeah, you had your Mac for 4 years, I thought, right?
No, I think that's Andrew, because I got this.
Oh, that's what Andrew. That's right.
November
Not from
2019.
The Mac Voices.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you're close to 3 years.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty cool program. I'm impressed to see what Best Buy does with this, and if Apple follows suit, because because I think it's going to get even more people in on this. I know we talked about this during Mac Voices Live this past week, but thought that everybody should know about it here as well, because we do it with iPhone. Why not do it with Mac? Chuck, what do you think? Do you think Apple's going to jump into this at some point? Or do you think they're going to let Best Buy run with it for now?
I don't know. I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense. I think for the lower end, and I don't want to sound egotistical or
no,
I don't know what. aristocratic or something. But the pricing for the low end models, is phenomenal. I think and it should be said that, if you do the math, folks, you'll find out that basically if you don't renew your subscription, then you're going to end up paying exactly the same amount of cash out as if you bought the new Mac in that configuration today. The only difference is you will have paid it over 3 years. If you do, trade the machine in and get the next, roll over to the next one, then that last payment, which is it's a bit more sizable. I think it's like 3 or 4 times what a monthly payment is, depending on which level you're talking about. Then they make that for you, as that's sort of think of it as almost as a trade-in. And a trade-in discount, and then you keep on rolling. So it's a great deal, and I think going into a recession, this is a great time. I'm not sure Apple really cares about doing this that way, especially as we're seeing Mac sales be good. I think it definitely introduces a bit of paperwork and a bit of follow-up. And there's one other little issue here, and that is, how people, because right now the machines that are available are laptops, and how, people, I think, abuse their laptops. We've heard stories this time around about the iPhone 16, people going to trade in their 15, and it's got a nick or something, and so we're not taking it back, and it's not eligible. And so with a laptop, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I see people abuse laptops far more than they do their phones. And so I'm not sure Apple wants to get into this game. I think it'll be interesting to see just how Best Buy does with this in 3 years.
Well, this is a great test program for Apple.
Yeah, this absolutely feels like a beta test that could eventually end up being something that makes its way up to Apple retail. But I also really like the idea that if you ask most people, can you afford $1,000 laptop today? God, no. That's why I don't have one. But if you ask a bunch of people, can you afford $20 a month? That answer is usually different. And so the fact that you could maybe have a less old machine, you could get some, you could finally upgrade that creaky auxiliary laptop because you spend all your time on your phone anyway. But maybe it'd be really nice to have a more recent computer again, like you did 8 years ago or 10 years ago in some cases. It's possible that maybe this is the kind of thing that's going to also help sort of, maybe cause a little bit of an uptick in laptop purchases if it's more of a lease/rental kind of a plan where you can trade it in, then maybe people will take a little bit more care of it. I don't know. But also it's possible that maybe this is going to be something that causes more people to look a little more closely at getting a MacBook Air or something, especially as the MacBook Air has become a more capable machine. Getting into a machine for $1,000 where people always talk about laptops being expensive, but a Windows machine, to get a solid Windows machine, is going to be right in that same neighborhood. So if they can go head to head and split it up over 0% monthly payments, I'm not stacking up additional credit card debt that I'm going to have to try and make the minimum payment on for the rest of my life or until the heat death of the universe or whatever, then it makes it a little easier maybe for some people to tolerate. If it's like, if I ditch 2 streaming services, I could have a laptop instead for that same $20 a month. Maybe there's a little different value proposition there, and that might make more people consider it as a choice. And I hope they do, because a lot of people could stand a new machine. Even more people could stand a new machine than the people who all bought one last quarter. Let me put it that way. Just to take it back to the beginning of the show. And I think there's a lot of value in that for a lot of people. So I hope it ends up being something interesting that generates a lot of attention.
I agree. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Glad to see somebody is doing this, because it was way overdue. Because these MacBook Pros can be real expensive. I bought the M1 Pro 16-inch, and granted, I have the Apple Card, and that's a sweet deal because it just forces you to pay it off in a year. So I'm almost paid off now, so it's getting close. So, and you don't kind of feel it. So it just kind of goes on the card. You pay the card. So it's a good thing. So be definitely a good thing to check it out here. So
David,
two more topics. Go ahead.
You brought up an interesting point that I really honestly hadn't thought about, and that is the Apple Card with 1 year versus Best Buy with 3 years.
Exactly.
So, you have options. I honestly hadn't thought about it quite that way. Yeah. So it's something for people to think about. Maybe if they're not comfortable signing on for a 3-year deal, it's not an upgrade program, but it is a delayed payment program, automatically delayed payment program.
And Best Buy is known for its open boxes. They sell a lot of open box products, and Apple, in a sense, I got a good deal because I traded in my 2019 MacBook Pro that I had and got a pretty good credit from Apple so the sting wasn't so bad for the M1 Pro 16-inch. So you definitely got different options.
Yeah.
So, all right. 2 more topics here real quick. iCloud.com, anybody who goes out to their website to check stuff, because it's always a lot easier sometimes. You just want to go out there. They did do they're doing a complete redesign on their site right now. It gets a complete widget-inspired redesign. I went on to it earlier today, and I really like it. It's really clean. And customize widgets, and you can default the way they are displayed. I think they really did a really great job and a much cleaner site. So if you go to beta.icloud.com and you sign into your iCloud account on the web, you can check out and click each header of each widget, and it brings that app to open for you. A good example is the mail widget. You click on the mail header, and the iCloud mail web page opens. And then the individual pages are very much the same, or what the current iCloud site is for now, but that's subject to change since it is in beta. Doesn't hurt anything to check that out. I mean, it's not like a device. You can go to the website and try it out and see what it looks like. So, but I thought that was a cool thing that Apple decided to do here. So,
my observation on that, super fast.
Yeah, please.
Load times on the new iCloud beta website so much faster.
It seems like it. Yeah.
The regular iCloud
absolutely.
website.
Yeah, it did seem like it. So, any other comments on that? All right. The last topic here is I want to talk a little bit about continuity camera that's in macOS and Ventura. Everybody's getting excited about that. I did buy the Belkin the Belkin MagSafe clip here, as you can see, and it clips on. There had been some complaints about it's not very, very stable. You got to be kind of careful the way it hits on the laptop, because I did it, and the iPhone can fall if you're not careful, because you have to, you got to mount it, the magnetic piece facing this way, and it will, it does work. You just got to be careful with it. And there's probably going to be more knockoffs and options, but for $30, it wasn't a bad deal. But so people were thinking that it's being Sherlocked of all the other apps. And my favorite app of all time is Reincubate's Camo. I use that. That's how I'm using it now. Well, I have a link here in the show notes from their blog. They did introduce Wi-Fi connectivity, and all this time I was not able to do it in Wi-Fi. You now can connect through Wi-Fi. I am currently connected on Wi-Fi with.
Nice.
With this iPhone 10R, and it's the latest version that they just introduced it. Super simple to connect. All you do is you take the iPhone, and there's a QR code that comes up on the display for when you launch your Camo app on your Mac. Scan it, and it'll automatically connect it once, and then once you do it once, it'll remember your iPhone every time after that. So you connect with Wi-Fi, and it's using the standard Wi-Fi 802.11 standard. So kids, it isn't Sherlock. One of the things that continuity camera is not going to do that does it the way it does it before is the fact that it's going to connect without any problems, and also you have all the other settings in Camo to be able to do that, make changes. You got lower thirds like I have here on mine, and all that stuff. You don't have those options in continuity cameras. You just have a camera connection, and that's it. So I think Camo still's got some value to it.
Yeah.
The way I see this, it's like so many other apps that people are sure are being Sherlocked.
Right.
When they're not. Because what Apple does is give you a feature and everyone can use it. And if it works for you, great. But if you need more than what that feature does, that becomes what Apple calls a third-party opportunity. And that's why when Password has never been Sherlocked, that's why Camo isn't going to be Sherlocked. That's why OmniFocus was never Sherlocked. Text Expander is not Sherlocked. These are all opportunities to do more than what Apple gives you. But Apple's great at giving you a feature so that people can do something. And if they outgrow what Apple gives them, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm still using my Plexicam like I normally do, and nothing's changed with that. It's just, look, man, no wires. So it's going to keep a cleaner desktop. And I used it on Tuesday night when we were on Mac Voices Live, and it didn't drop once. So it seems pretty solid.
Nice.
Whenever you're dealing with Wi-Fi, especially transmitting a video connection, you always kind of have to wonder, is that going to work? Well, I mean, Apple obviously has done it with Ventura. I haven't really spent a lot of time using that yet. I've not yet to upgrade my my primary Mac just yet. I'm still waiting. I want to wait a little extra time. I'm sure you guys are probably the same thought I have. But
I'm running Ventura on my main Mac, and I've already tested all of my audio video stuff, and it's all working.
I did. Okay, so I may jump in quicker, but I wanted to wait a little bit because they introduced 13.1 right away. They're actively checking for stuff. So and I think all the apps we need, like Audio Hijack and others, RogoBeam has done a good job getting those all compatible.
Yes.
So
all my backup apps are working correctly, and I'm using
that too.
Mike Bombich, Carbon Copy Cloner, and Super Duper, and they're both working fine.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. I think all my backups have been good too. So,
is there anything you have found that is not working?
No.
Okay. That said, I have not gone to Ventura yet on anything, but that because I've been doing just what you guys were talking about, waiting to see. I'll let you take the arrows. Thank you very much.
And honestly, I have been watching very closely. I've been vigilant about staying on top of the updates so that I am Ventura ready, or was Ventura ready. And I was certain that after I made the move, then I was going to get bit because something that I rely on that I didn't think about wasn't actually going to have Ventura support yet. And I have not run into that problem yet.
Okay.
That's good.
I'm glad to hear it.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. And with that, we made it. You were worried I wasn't going to make it through the whole show with all the stuff I had on the notes here, but we did. So we had a really great, lively conversation, and I really appreciate y'all being here. So let's go ahead and wrap up for this week. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @InTouchWithIOS. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. If you want to become a patron of the show, you can go to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you're notified when we are live, which is on Thursday nights, usually at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, at our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios, where you can watch the show live as well as listen to and watch past shows. Visit In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the topics we discussed are flipped into the magazine. The link is in our show notes. You can subscribe to the show in your favorite podcatcher, including Memir, Pocket Cast, Overcast, many others, but better yet, go to our website, intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter at DaveG65 for now. And Chuck, so glad you were able to make it this week. Thanks for being here. Where can people find you?
Hey, thank you, David. Always a pleasure and always a lot of fun. You can find me at macvoices.com. That's where you see a lot of interesting, fun things. We are in the process of getting our holiday gift guides out to help you save money, right? Yes, save money. That's it.
And spend.
we do Mac Voices live Tuesday nights on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. Please join us in the chat room. That way you can harass us or throw your comments or questions at us. And you can find me on pretty much all the socials until one of them goes away, as at Chuck Joyner or at Mac Voices. Thanks again, David.
Thank you. And Jeff Gamet, thank you as always for being here. It's always really appreciated. Where can people find you?
It's always a pleasure to get to be here and hang out with you and all these cool people. Yes. I am Jay Gamet on basically all of the socials. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And then most Tuesdays, I'm with the three of you on Chuck's show, Mac Voices Live. Excuse me. Then Thursdays early in the day, the big show. Thursday evenings, here with you again. And then Fridays on the Mac show. And then also on the Context Machine, because Brian Chaffin and I have teamed up again.
Great. Thanks again. And Kelly Guimont, so thrilled you were able to finally make it back to the show here. We really enjoy having you. And where can people find you?
I'm so happy to be here. I'm always excited when you send me a text and want to know what I'm doing on Tuesday afternoon. Like David, in the short term, at least, you can still find me on Twitter as Verso. You can also occasionally find me on Instagram. I spend more time on Glass these days, trying to up my photography game. And sometimes I in a fit of optimism, I went and fired up a website, and then I have sort of left it to collect dust. So I'm trying to dust that off and get back into that. And you can find that over at theslice.tech.
Great. And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. We enjoyed doing it. And we'll talk again next time.